Alex. I'm very conscious that these sorts of meetings and sessions and webinars, we're very institutional focused towards the IDP. So we want to have a little bit of a session now on service providers. And there's one single description of what a service provider does. It can be very varied. So we've got the entire UK Federation help desk team here. So this is your chance for institutions to maybe ask questions about issues they have with service providers in general, about in terms of federated access, how service providers could ask questions perhaps about integrating with some of the GIST services with the UK Federation, or anything else in that realm. And I think, Steve, you're going to sort of kick it off by commenting on a few of the things which are sort of key for the UK Federation when it comes to service provider entities.
Hang on, which screen do I want? Might as well use that one. Right. Well, I had a look over the last several months worth of calls that have come into the help desk, and there doesn't really seem to be anything much in that fits in as an overall theme. Most recently, it's been more sort of updating on the Open Athens side of things. Any other particular SP related things? There's been the occasional attribute related. I think talking to SPs or some who don't seem to actually bother much with using attributes. It seems, as far as some of them are concerned, as long as they can access them and they can see an entity ID, that seems to be quite sufficient. And well, that's not really good enough, to be honest. But any particular general issues over the last while? Short answer is there don't really seem to be any. I'd like, I think, to turn that round and ask publishers and SP operators in the audience if there's anything they would like us to do that we're not doing, or that or anything they would like to do that we could make easier for them.
So please feel free to unmute your mics and just ask questions directly. It doesn't have to be through the chat.
Alternatively, if you want to go through the chat, I'll then read from there.
Also, occasionally we get, it goes beyond the UK Federation remit, but obviously we do get institutions ask questions about licensing terms sometimes, quite how they're conforming with a license. And as Steve said, that is one of the problems. If a SP is just basically granting access without specific attributes, sometimes that can worry the institutions in terms of what they're releasing. Well, we're not going to force you guys. So I do know there's some SPs on the call. So if you do have any, maybe it's not even a question, it's something you'd like to see discussed as a topic in the future. Now's the time to sort of input into it.
Right, well, we've got a couple actually. Yeah, we've got Neil asking about engagement with publishers in particular e-journals in supporting Shibboleth. I'm not sure if Shibboleth is shorthand for federated access, or Shibboleth in particular.
Yeah. It's just I do remember Federation Town Hall Weaver last year or a year before, where there were various publishers, particularly e-journal publishers, and there was mention that GISC or the UK Federation might put some pressure on various publishers to support Shibboleth to get away from IP restrictions.
Yeah, I think something in the GISC collections standard contract about If you want to be part of GIST Collections, then we would expect you to have federated access of some sort.
Yeah, so that's key part of the collections model license. Of course, there are some exceptions, particularly when collections are trying to bring on small journal publishers, where it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg. But in terms of big e-journal publishers, if there are any which still aren't on board, again, send me a list. And the situation's changed a little bit in the last couple of years because of GISC's merger with Open Athens. We've got hopefully a little bit even more influence we can wield. And also coming from another direction, there's been obviously the RA21 initiative, which was to try to move people away from IP and proxy into SSO as well. So frankly, I don't feel there's too much excuse for a publisher at scale to not introduce SSO, and occasionally it might be libraries need to start saying, if you don't measure up to the standards we require, we're not going to take your resource. I know it's very easy for me to say sitting here, not having to provide actual resources to academics, but we'd certainly encourage that approach. And that's what the GIST Collections model license has tried to achieve. But if you send me a list offline, Neil, I'll have a look at it.
Moving on to the next question, Christopher Hoskin with, do publishers make much use of EduPerson scoped affiliation? Well, in the UK Federation, it's probably massively more often used in EduPerson entitlement. I think it's possible that that earlier on our licenses were, or the licenses that people used were in the format that these resources were for all students plus staff at a given organisation, so therefore being student or staff was enough to be able to access something. And entitlement as an attribute was generally used to tune specific things, like you wouldn't want your non-medical students to have access to videos of complicated operations and such like. Or you might use an entitlement, say, to allow individuals to access a particular SP. Say, for example, if they were a site rep for a publisher, then an entitlement might allow them to access things that the usual run of users of that SP wouldn't actually need to access. So I would, in terms of publishers acting on the basis of scoped affiliation, I would think it's probably the vast majority, apart from the very small number who don't seem to bother paying attention to attributes at all. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
I think we'll come back to the SAML one in a sec. Alex will probably want to chip in here. It's his favourite area. Well,
it's favorite area.
But in terms of granularity with subscriptions, that's a good question, because I'd add to it, do we really see licenses leveraging that or not? And I haven't seen too many which I felt do. But I do wonder if Christopher's sort of answered his own question in terms of why that's not happening. I think there might be some lack of knowledge. Institutions obviously do need the data to back it up and really understand their classes and groups. I don't know if you got anything to add, Steve.
I've been sort of looking at affiliations and entitlements on and off since looking at some of the transnational stuff a year or so back. I sometimes think that if an institution is releasing entitlements rather than just an affiliation is basically a description of someone, and entitlement is more what they can do. I was in a meeting the other week where someone made the comparison that the one is a passport, the other is your visas, which are stamped into it. Whether publishers licensing stuff to an organization would want to charge a different fee, say, for all staff having access to something, or a particular group having entitlements, I don't know, something like that might encourage people to take it up, but I don't know. I think it's probably a decision for another place in the help desk.
I think it's also it's an area of work and activity for GIST Collections as well. So if anybody does want to pursue that a little bit more and perhaps email just collections and include me in, we can get that conversation going or keep it going.
Just as a real world example, I was actually talking to an FE college yesterday about doing exactly this, where they had a subset of their students that they wanted to license content for, and they were using an entitlement with a small set of services to provide that access, thus essentially blocking out the unlicensed people.
Oh, good one. Yeah, the bad and wrong way of doing that is we've had a couple of FE campuses that have merged into a larger one, and one lot would send the appropriate affiliation to get access to something, and the other one, they just wouldn't actually send the affiliate. They wouldn't just send the affiliation value, and doing it by entitlements is the right way. And I always think we should do the opposite of naming and shaming them. That's brilliant.
Think about that. I think the SAML one question, Alex, you might want to dip on that one.
Sorry, pardon me, the perennial problem of SAML 1.
Yes, Robert's asked, what about SAML 1 removal from publishers' SPs?
I think we have to look on this as a kind of healthcare, with a public health lens on this. It'll be very difficult to eradicate it, and instead we'll look at managing it as a long-term condition. We only have certain levers to do this. I mean, I think, and this comes around quite a lot, where people say, well, why don't you just not publish SAML 1 endpoints? However, that would stop certain things working, and also there may be waveless URLs that are embedded in lecture notes or course materials or whatever, which may require SAML 1. So I think the viewpoint of taking out SAML 1 endpoints, I don't think is our ambition in the short term. Instead, we have to look at some of the levers we do have. I mean, we can use rhetoric on the SPs and say that. We can ask IDPs to help us and collate which SPs are still using SAML 1. And we also have what is our current area of focus. I mean, it's in our issues tracker as high priority, but it's still moving slowly, which is our central discovery service that still allows the legacy WAF flow. So I guess we're moving slowly on deprecating and removing SAML 1 flows through our central discovery service. And it might be time again if IDP operators who wish to move to a SAML 1 free world were able to get in touch with us, and we can collate something like we did a couple of years ago, looking through and seeing which SPs still use that. I mean, I'd be willing to put some time into that. It is another one of these difficult problems. So I guess, if there are, maybe we'll put something out as a mailing list or get in touch with the help desk, and we can look to collating some information on that.
Thanks, Alex. James asked a question about publishers and PID. This, repeatedly comes up, and I think JISC itself, and not just UK Federation, we wade into this area sort of 2 or 3 times a year. Sometimes the publisher will start requesting it in a way which is sort of either breaking the UX or going beyond what we'd expect. And it's easy for us to, well, it's an area we're very happy to involve ourselves in when it's just collections agreement. It's slightly harder when it's not. So I think that's an area really perhaps the libraries themselves who are present can comment on. Cases where publishers are effectively demanding PID for use of their resource.
Hi, it's Peter from Baspar again here. Yeah, I spoke about this a bit with Jane recently. I think it's only a small subset of the ones we license access to, but I think it tends to be the ones that are more in you know, geared towards the more sort of Silicon Valley way of working, I suppose, startup-y type ones, and they all go outside the federation as well. And I think the overwhelming pressure, especially with COVID and stuff like that, is just to broker access to these and get access, and kind of lack of knowledge and expediencies upon the people who are contracting with them within the library will lead to, you know, overlooking some of the sort of good work that you're doing here and just not having the awareness of it. It's not, I don't think it's a lot within the scholarly community, but yeah.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I mean, that seems to tally with sort of our experiences. It's a couple of times a year, and it's a combination sometimes of just lack of knowledge, and then it's just a little bit of an education task, and once or twice, possibly, yeah, resources pushing the limits a little bit. Okay, well, we're coming up to the hour. Again, if there's any questions you want to ask, off list, send them in. We can discuss them at a later date. We're probably looking at doing this in a month's time with just maybe a 1 hour slot once a month, and we'll probably identify some kind of UK Federation principal topic and then have a sort of ask anything. So again, if there's issues you'd like to have for that, please email service@ukfederation.org.uk, and otherwise see you tomorrow for delegated authentication being led, I think, by Matthew and John, and readiness for SHIB, which is kind of everybody, and I believe we're going to have Scott around as well to answer all sorts of questions, so I'm looking forward to that. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you.